Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development and Consulting, the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. So as Cindy and I have gotten to do over the last several weeks, I have the wonderful opportunity today to chat with a gentleman that's become a really good friend over the last several years, Chris Quinn. He's the CEO and president of the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Chamber of Commerce. Chris and his family moved here to take that position and kind of lead the chamber in a new chapter in 2021. So we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and I'm not sure Chris knew what he was getting into. They moved here from Jacksonville, Florida, and as we got to know him, we really enjoyed the interaction we had with Chris, but more importantly, what we saw him do to learn to know the community and how the chamber could add value in so many different ways. Now, that led us to almost immediately say, hey, we do this thing called Live to Lead Harrisonburg, and we've done it all these years, and would you be our MC for the 2022 event? And Chris doesn't necessarily seek the spotlight. He's really tuned into one-on-one conversations and so on, but he reluctantly said, yeah, I'll do that. And I hope it was a good experience. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Chris to let him give a more specific overview of his professional background and experience in the industry. But I just want to say how much we've appreciated the relationship that we've had and how much we enjoy getting to know and interact. And just recently, in chatting with your son, Connor, he was pretty excited to be social and everything, right? Maybe not so much, but he tolerated me nonetheless. Chris, do you want to share some of your background and industry experience with us?
Sure, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And it's been a whirlwind. Sometimes they say, oh, it's only been 2021, but sometimes it feels like 10 years. Sometimes it feels like 10 months. It all kind of depends on what's going on too. So really, kind of my background has been really in government, in lobbying, in kind of your public policy background. So kind of started my career working up in Massachusetts and working for some state government agencies, then the State House, kind of really getting into how the sausage gets made there. Worked on some behind the scenes, some political campaigns there, and then decided, you know what, let me give my my shot and go down to DC and see how that works. So worked for some trade associations down there, kind of in coalition building, kind of your direct lobbying, then moved over into running a small trade association that represented nonprofits and kind of the fundraising community. So really got into the weeds of that, and where now I had my own team leading those folks. And then I saw that there was a position opened up in Jacksonville, Florida in the Chamber of Commerce to start a new government affairs program, kind of lead something, build something from the ground up. That piqued my interest. I thought I'd take a shot at that. And next thing I know, I was on a plane down to Florida and got into the Chamber of Commerce world, was there for about 10 years, and then decided it was time to move back a little bit nearer family, and saw that there was an opening in Harrisonburg, Virginia, threw my hat in the ring, and next thing I know, I'm in the Valley. So that's kind of a quick whirlwind tour of my background.
Now, it's certainly not professional. Well, it is professional because you've taken on some pretty significant roles, but it's not related to everything you just explained. You've been really active since you've been in our area, in Harrisonburg-Rockingham, in youth soccer coaching. Do you want to touch on that at all? Because, I mean, that makes a tremendous influence on the young population.
Sure. I mean, so a lot of what we do in the chamber is community oriented, and my passion outside of chamber and working with the community is youth sports, particularly soccer. So I dove right into that, and it's amazing the people that you'd run into, the business community, people outside the business community that have kids that are playing. So now as I walk through the community, I don't just get, oh, that's the chamber guy. I get coach. Hey, coach, good to see you on that too. And so you run in very small circles in that too. But that's, to me, that's community engagement. That's getting to know people outside of the office, and that which is just as important as getting to know them through the 9-to-5 world.
Yeah, Chris, I love that. So here's a tidbit that you and I've never discussed. So somehow I missed the Massachusetts part. One of my lifelong mentors, he's been a mentor to me for more than 25 years now. His name's Terry Ward. He and I worked for a large manufacturing company together for 10, 12 years, but we've stayed close for the last 20 years since then. and he's from Attleboro, Massachusetts, and he actually was instrumental in helping launch the Harrisonburg Youth Soccer Association with a lady named Carolyn Frank, who I think was the mayor at one point in time. But Terry's lived in Richmond for a number of years, but just a dear, dear friend. And I'm excited that I'll be able to introduce you to him at the Leadership Legacy Experience, because he's coming up from Richmond. He wrote a piece in my newest book, Leading with a Clear Purpose, and so on. So you and him not only have the Massachusetts connection, the local soccer leagues, he was very involved. So very cool.
Great.
With that said, I mean, I think this ties it together. The next question I've enjoyed tossing out to folks is, what was your clear purpose for accepting a role with leadership responsibility? And I always try to qualify it by saying a title, the CEO and president of the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Chamber of Commerce, is not synonymous with being a leader. It's really about the influence. And I would argue that the coaching role and the way you earn that leadership with the influence and leadership with the kids that are being coached by you, and the way they say, hey, coach, and they say it with affection as opposed to, hey, coach, is really what leadership's all about. Talk to me about that clear purpose for taking on those different roles where you've had to earn that influence.
So again, I think it's important to look at, and you have to have the experience of you're not always the leader. And so what experiences are you bringing from that? Good, bad, and indifferent. And I've been in plenty of different environments where you've had great leaders, and environments where I don't know if I'm going to do it that way if I ever get the chance on that too. And so my purpose going into a lot of these roles is I want to create an environment where you never are talking with, whether it's the coach, whether it's a leader, that I work for such and such. It's always I work with such and such, and making it the type of environment where people feel the ability to try new things, that it's okay to fail, because that's where we're learning the most, and that breeds innovation and people taking chances, and you're growing, and that no one is ever fearful of, well, if I make a mistake, Chris is going to get mad at me. Like, no, we start very, very clear that mistakes are expected. That's what you learn from. That's how you grow. The great thing about a mistake is you know not what to do next time. And now we go forward and we figure that out. The same is true in the business environment, and the same is true in the youth sports environment. That's, if you're ever going to learn something in youth sports, it's that mistakes are going to happen. And we tell the kids, if you knew everything, you'd be a professional by now. You'd be teaching me how to do things. So don't worry about it. Make mistakes, learn, try different things. And we take that right into the organizational world on things too. So my environment is, I want you to try something and be okay with knowing that it might not work. And that's the environment that we want. Environment of innovation and taking those chances, and try thinking outside the box, because I think that's what people look for when they look to join groups like a Chamber of Commerce or another membership organization. So that's really what I wanted to drive and try to inspire in whatever group that I was with.
Now, I'm going to dig just a little bit deeper on that. When I wrote Leading with Clear Purpose, I remember in December of 2023, I'd finished up What's Killing Your Profitability. It was set to be published and so on. Thinking, okay, I need to start a new book. And I just was floundering. I didn't know where I wanted to go. And I had a conversation with a lifelong friend who we're the same age, but I've always kind of looked at him as a hero because of his character, his work ethic, just everything that I'd seen him accomplish, in spite of any of the odds stacked against him at any point in time. And I heard an emptiness in it. And I realized, gosh, he doesn't have something in his professional life at that point in time that's really giving him fulfillment. Where's that fulfillment come from? What's the biggest part of fulfillment in either of those roles, coaching or in any of the leadership roles that you've held in your career? Where have you got the most fulfillment?
It's interesting, because I think if you take a leadership role, it can't be about you. And it's got to be about others. It's about the organization. So I get the most fulfillment when I see, whether it's a staff member or it's a player, get accolades for something that they've done, because then you've put together the environment to allow for them to succeed. And by them doing well, then obviously reflects the leadership that's there. It doesn't need to be an award or someone say patting on the back. The fact that you have employees or players that are doing well, that's enough. And I think that to me is where I get the fulfillment to say, oh, that's great. They got an award or they're doing well on something because you allowed them to get there, or you helped foster that in some way, shape, or form.
Amen, Chris. I could cry in hearing you explain that. So I think it was in 2022 at your annual banquet with the chamber, you guys recognized a dear friend of mine. I met him when he was 19 years old. I'd had a fingerprint, just a small fingerprint on his journey. He did the work, but I was able to connect some of those dots. And I saw you guys recognize him and his wife as Entrepreneurs of the Year for the businesses that they had purchased and run and so on, and the impact that they've done in so many ways in nonprofits and stuff with the community. And that was the feeling. I'm going, holy crap, I didn't do it. But maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't have had that door opened if I wouldn't have had that fingerprint there. I'm not taking the credit, but my gosh, that was fulfilling just to see that, holy crap, we helped somebody along the way. So love that explanation. So in your career, so you said it, you nailed it with what you said about, hey, you don't do it for yourself. And what we've seen over the last 25, 30 years in the work that Cindy and I do, more specifically in our business in the last 10 years, we see great people develop technical skill sets and they get promotions in the roles, but it's a difference when you've got that responsibility for really leading and serving a team. What motivated you to get involved in that leadership development side, not just, hey, I'm good at my technical aspect?
Well, I think the first thing is you need to go into it knowing that you don't know everything. And you need to say that I've got to be as difficult as it is, that you've got blind spots, you've got growth that you need to do that. There's going to be mistakes that you made. And so how can you continually advance yourself in terms of leadership techniques or leadership ideas that are out there, that you're always learning from someone or something. It's like going to, it's like having a doctor. Do you want a doctor that doesn't continually educate themselves on the new techniques that are going forward? Or do you want someone who's on the cutting edge of what's the latest and greatest there? I want to go see that. I want to go see that doctor. It's the same thing on leadership. There's always something new. That's not to say that what's tried and true is not working, but there's always something out there. And you could learn something from another organization that has nothing to do with your organization. It may not be cookie cutter, but can I take aspects of that and apply it into my own environment? Because your environment is going to be unique to you and your team, but can I tweak it a little bit to make it fit? So I think that's something that's very important.
Absolutely. And gosh, that's driven a lot of what Cindy and I've done in creating executive circles and different things like that to help folks sharpen the saw and learn from one another. Now, you said something that I want to call attention to. Part of it's admitting that you don't know it all. Can you picture the faces of the folks that they're a CEO or they're an owner and they automatically assume, hey, I know it all and I'll tell you?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you want to name any I'm just kidding. I could do that if you want, but that would probably take us in a whole different direction from where this conversation should be headed. Now, you guys, it's been a wonderful relationship with the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Chamber of Commerce. I believe we've had a partnership on the Live to Lead event since the second year we did it in 2016. We had just joined the chamber in 2015 when we did it the first time, and I don't think I even knew what I was doing, so that's on me. But we've had a long-standing relationship. Again, I mentioned earlier that you even emceed the 2022 event that we held. Why have you been willing to allow that relationship to continue? Why were you willing to say, yeah, I don't really want to, but I will MC for you? And more specifically, why were you willing to lock arms with us? And you guys have a pretty prominent role as emerging leader partners in the upcoming Leadership Legacy experience that we're doing at the Atlantic Union Bank Center. What's driven all that?
Well, I think for a couple different reasons. One, I see the benefit that even our own team here continually gets from it. They're always clamoring to go. They make sure they mark it off on their calendars that it's there, and the tidbits that they're pulling back from those events, and then trying to implement it in their daily work lives and even outside of their work lives and what they're trying to do. So that's been a tremendous kind of value add going forward, just for us personally. Also, too, the groups and the people that are involved. if you want to hit as many people at one time as you possibly can, it's those events. And all of those people are thinking the same type of thing: leadership development. What are they trying to do? They're trying to better their teams. And those are the groups that you want to interact with. And those are naturally, whether they're members of ours or not, those are people that you want to work with to say, okay, what are some partnerships out there? What are some things that maybe we could work on? Can we learn from someone else? Can we come and bring in someone as a speaker on something too? Because in the end, again, we're all there for the same thing. And I think that's where we've seen the value add every year going forward, and we'll continue to be a partner as long as you and Cindy are willing to put them together.
Well, we've worked hard year after year after year for the Live to Lead event specifically, and we were kind of capped. I mean, we were having 225 or so folks, and that's what the room would allow where we were doing it. Blue Ridge Community College is a wonderful facility, and we had round tables, and we built the networking, and we would, Chris, the last few years, we had around 100 organizations represented from all over Virginia and even outside the state. But again, the cap was there. We just couldn't fit more folks comfortably or safely in that room. As we have this conversation right now, we're, I think, approaching 325 seats spoken for at the Atlantic Union Bank Arena. There's about 25 or 30 companies, organizations that have trade show booths throughout the concourse throughout the day. You guys are one of those. So I'm excited to make sure that the right people get to know and interact with you as part of that trade show. And so on. But you're right. I mean, we really anticipate having north of 200 organizations represented with us. So how do we make sure that we build those strong relationships across organizations, across industries, and so on? So one of the things that I've been trying to do through these conversations is really make sure that I give each person we chat with, specifically the partners and the executive panelists, an opportunity to say, hey, here's something the community probably doesn't know about us, and here's a value that we work to add. What would that be for you guys?
So it's interesting. And I think depending on what chamber you ask, it's going to be a different answer. And I think sometimes people are surprised at the depth that there is with the Chamber of Commerce. I think most people, if you're even remotely familiar with the chamber, might think, well, they do some great networking events, and they put on a good party on that. But there's a lot of behind the scenes, in-depth work that we do even in the community. And so I think one of the things too that for our chamber that people may not be fully aware of, although we try to let everyone know, is the community development initiatives that we work on. So transportation, housing, and for us in particular, childcare. And so how that really intersects with everything everyone is doing, and the business community, the general community. Again, we like to say that that's critical infrastructure, and we need to invest in our childcare and make sure that it's their quality early education. And I think that's something that people may not be maybe quite familiar with our efforts on that.
No, I love that, and that really addresses the follow-up question that I would have asked about a campaign or initiative that you've really worked on to impact the community. And I'll stress it. I mean, Cindy and I have 6 grandkids as it stands today, and we've seen so many scenarios that, the chamber truly does support business. And how do we really make the environment supportive for business? But one of the realities is, gosh, it's hard for employees if they don't have childcare, can't get to work.
Right.
And businesses can't be successful if their employees can't get there. So it all feeds. So I just love that you've got that focus on how do we make sure that this is something that our community has. And realistically, if it had been there previously, it's only been in pockets, and those pockets were kind of disjointed at best. Is that fair to say? I think that's fair to say. And I think it's one of those issues where it's always an underlying issue, but we're trying to, with the business community, make it a very common talking point, which I think most people, when you talk to them, that'll be an issue that'll come up. There are other issues that are there, but that's a constant thread through everything else, I think. Absolutely. Well done with that. That's fantastic. Now, This is going to be a little bit more personal. Chris, as we're having this conversation, I'm about a chapter away from being done with a manuscript for a book on the importance of values and how that's really the foundation for any organization. And I want to take it back and kind of weave that in with the idea of purpose. When you were interviewing for the position here in 2021, what did you see about the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Chamber of Commerce, their purpose, and how it aligned with your personal purpose, the thing that drove you, and really your values, your family values? What was the most important? How did those things fit that you said, yeah, I think this is where I want to be?
Well, I think first off, I think everyone would agree that this is a community that supports each other. And, we jokingly say, if I don't know you, I probably know somebody who does know you on that. And so everybody is working to help each other in some way, shape, or form. And so I think that's kind of number one. You want a community that's already there. You don't have to create that. Two, looking in why we came and why I decided to take that leap was that all the building blocks were really there for the chamber to be something more than just a chamber, be something more than greater than the sum of its parts, essentially, and to be a community leader and look to see what can we do to create the path forward. What can we be to say, there's going to be times where the chamber needs to lead on an effort and pull the community with it. I think it's safe to say that the chamber, if we're nothing else, we're a very good convener, and we know we don't know everything, but we can bring various groups to the table and have those conversations. And so I think we like to be that neutral arbiter that people can come to us, know that, hey, we'll try to bring folks together and we'll give our 2 cents on something for sure, but let's bring people to the table and let's solve it as a group as opposed to individual entities. And that's, for us and for me, that's really kind of what I want to see. I want folks to come together and be a community solve problems as opposed to the loudest voice in the room. Because sometimes the quietest ones, they're the ones with the right answer. And so making sure that, why isn't Wes at the table? We need to figure that out and bring him to the table on that.
If I would have been taking a drink where you said quietus and why isn't Wes at the table in the same sentence, I would have spit it out right there. That's right. Hilarious. Yeah, I was expecting you to say, well, where's Cindy? What's she really got? Because she might add some real value. Wes is going to talk whether there's value or not. And I'm joking a little bit, but if you know Cindy, when she talks, there's value usually. When Wes talks, he'll get to it sometime. Anyway, now I'm gonna go off script just a little bit, Chris, and I want to dig in. You've had some amazing team members, and it's been neat to see how they've all, in their own ways, based on their own wiring, their own personality, if you will, really been driven to serve members. The one that's been a constant for the entire 10 years that Cindy and I have been a member, and oh, by the way, it's our 10-year anniversary with the chamber, and it's our 10-year anniversary in our business, and so on this year, has been Sheena. She's your chief of staff. I'm going to shine a little bit of light, and if you want to touch on anything and how she adds to that purpose, the mission, the vision for the chamber, you're welcome to. But I'm going to make sure I say she's been a constant that's looked for ways to add value through the decade that we've been involved. Is there anything that you're comfortable with sharing? And I can edit this out on the segment if you want me to. No,
sure. So I think Sheena, for sure. I think when people think chamber, they think Sheena. It's Sheena, chamber, Sheena. I think that's pretty much been the constant. I think that's Sheena definitely is the poster child for member engagement and making sure that the member is always first and figuring out whatever the member wants, how do we help them? How do we figure that out? And I think that's exactly kind of what you want. You want people to know who that friendly face is in the community. That's Sheena. You know that when you call up to the chamber, she's going to help you out. That's Sheena. And I think that's what we try to exude going forward. And I think she basically is the living embodiment of everything we're trying to do at the chamber. And you're going to just get a friendly face, and that's what we want.
Yeah. And make no mistake, I'm not trying to shun anybody else. We had a wonderful relationship with Trent in the time that he was there. And we had a great relationship interacting with Sarah over the years, and Alexis and Carly and all the different team members. But the constant for the entire time has truly been Sheena. And that's why I bring that up. So thank you for sharing that piece. Chris, one of the things that Cindy and I really work to do, so, for years, and we've hosted the group at the chamber a number of years, our executive leadership elite think tank, but we've recently in the last year or so launched an Impact Leadership Academy that was really geared in. It was Thomas Ray's idea from Bank of the James. But we launched it for how do we give folks that, not from our emerging leader, because many of the folks that graduate from that, they're not quite ready for that executive level. We've launched that Impact Leadership Academy to be kind of, how do we take them to be that aspiring leader, grow into executive roles and so on. So we always ask, what advice would you give to an aspiring young professional that really wants to move into that significant leadership role, maybe not immediately, but throughout their career?
So that's it. It's interesting because I'll say something that maybe not everybody always says, but be okay with failure. And that's something where leaders throughout history, throughout business, throughout everything, they've all failed. And it's just a question of how quickly do they get up from that failure? What do they learn from it? And are they someone that's going to get up, dust themselves off and say, okay, I'm going to try again. I'm going to figure it out. Or do they turn around and say, I'm not doing that again? Every successful leader has a history of failure, and it's just not always talked about, but that's what they've learned, and that's how they've gotten to where they've gotten. So being okay with failing and figuring out, how do I learn from that? Because learning is failing. That's how you learn, and that's okay. And I think understanding that is going to be a huge thing, and being okay with that. Because if you're not, those higher leadership roles are probably not for you, and that's okay. But that's, I think, something very important, that it's not as easy as you think it would be. So just being okay with failing would be probably my biggest piece of advice.
I love that. I've heard John Maxwell say, you're never good the first time. And I just had a conversation yesterday with somebody that says, how do you do this? Or how do you do this? I said, you get started. You figure it out along the way. Nobody's watching anyway. You're going to do something stupid, own it, learn from it, move on. It's all right.
Right.
It's not fatal. I love that. Chris, what have I not asked you that you'd really like to make sure that folks hear about you personally, the mission, the vision of the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Chamber of Commerce, or just anything in the area?
I mean, I really would just say that the chamber, like anything, and even like myself too, we're always looking to evolve. We're always looking to change. And so with that comes feedback. And so we want our members, we want people who are not members, community partners, give us feedback. Let us know what are things you'd like for us to do, like for us to change, things you like, because that helps us evolve over time. We don't want to be the same chamber 5 years from now, 10 years from now. We want people who are members now to maybe not even recognize us 10 years from now too. And so constantly evolving, because if you don't, you might be shuttering your doors on that too. So I'd say, give us feedback, talk to us. We want to hear those things. Of course, we always want to hear how great we are, but we also want to hear how we can improve. And I think that's something maybe not everyone always does, but we're always open to that and want to hear that.
Outstanding. Chris, I truly appreciate you taking the time to do this with me. I most importantly appreciate the relationship that we've been able to have with the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Chamber of Commerce over the years. I've dropped the links to the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Chamber and the event in the comments threads for the live feeds of this. It'll be wherever it's accessible, be it podcast and the digital course for the event. I always close by saying, gosh, if anybody out there accessing this has a need for continuing education credit, specifically in the HR community, reach out to me and Cindy. Send us an email at admin@dove-development.net, and we will be happy to hook you up with a 45-day all-access trial to our full Leading at the Next Level program. Gosh, Chris, get this. Today, it's got over 160 hours worth of content in the digital course. Wow. And we typically do 2 new live lessons virtually every month that go into the digital course. So it's, who knew it was going to turn into that when we started in 2018, but that's where we're at. So anyway, we appreciate you being with us. Guys, if there's a way we can serve you, we look forward to doing that. And we just appreciate the opportunity to be with you on June 13th for the Leadership Legacy experience. Again, Chris, thank you very much for the time. And I look forward to seeing you very soon in person, sir.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
See you soon.